Great. Hello, welcome. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you all. I'm Richert Belul, and my book is Say It Now, 33 Creative Ways to Say I Love You to the Most Important People in Your Life. And I'm so excited today to have Paula and G. Brian here. Hi, you guys. Thanks
Hello.
for being here.
Hello.
Yeah, welcome. And you guys, I love that your books are so complementary. And I know when we build this, we said we were going to talk about some ways to relieve stress. So, but of course we might go anywhere we want, but that's sort of where we're going to start. And so Paula, why don't we have you introduce yourself and hold up your book. And if you could share with us some of the favorite ways that you're taking care of yourself right now.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Paula Rizzo. I'm the author of this lovely book, Listful Living, a list-making journey to a less stressed you. And it is a journal meant to, go through and fill in the blanks. And I'm a big list maker. This is my second book about lists. So I'm really dedicated to the list making practice. And it is a big, stress reliever to be able to write something down, get it out of your head, put it down on paper. So list making is one of my big, take care of yourself, get things out of your mind, don't get too, overly stressed. But I would say meditation has been one of those things that I keep coming back to. I keep thinking that it's something that really makes a difference. It actually makes me more productive. So I do 10 minutes every morning. I use the Calm app, which I love. And I just feel like that's enough. I did it, good. And I've noticed a big difference.
Paula, I love that. First of all, I love that you actually do use lists, right? Because you do have these books out, but that connecting that, and I think we're going to hear some more about that later on, but also the meditation piece. Is it a particular kind of, is it an audio meditation or?
It is. Yeah. It's an audio meditation every day. It's a different one. And, the woman just, walks you through, this is the meditation for today. This is sort of the intention. And I love it because it is very mindful, obviously, but I find that list making is very mindful too. If you do it the right way, if you look at your list as like, hey, I'm going to set my intention for the day. This is what I want to be doing. This is what rather than having the list lead you, which happens a lot of times, and then people get all stressed out.
I love that. I love that. When we come back around and talk about your book, I hope you'll pick up from there and tell us some more, because that's really great. Oh, Lois, I love your cat.
Thank you. She hasn't had any lap time today, so she's
talk about a stress
reliever. Yeah.
Number one on our lists, cats.
Unless you're allergic.
Oh, okay, G. Brian, your turn.
I know.
Are you allergic to cats?
Oh, gosh. Well, okay. Gosh, I love what Paula said. And meditation is huge for me too. I do it a couple times a day, and it helps me stay grounded. I think the other thing that is like at the top of my list is movement. And I get a walk in every day with a buddy of mine. It's the only thing that's really kept me sane with all this isolating and stuff since I live by myself. And so, we get a walk in, get some exercise, some movement, and it just kind of makes everything all right for a little while. You know what I mean? And I've actually been kind of walking sometimes twice a day just because I got this energy that just wants to, I got to get out of the house too, because I just go bananas, but movement. Yeah.
Hey, do you have your book handy to tell us?
Oh yeah. It's the one that I've taken to book signing. So it's all numbered up and stuff, but yes, Habits for Success right there.
Love it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Hey, Nita, good to see you. Welcome.
Hey, Nita.
We're just getting started. So that's so wonderful. I love that movement. Yeah. So I love that we've got meditation, movement, list making, cats. I mean, we're already making our own list, right? So I love that. So Paula, let's hear some more about your book. And if you could, let's hear some more about how lists relieve stress.
Yeah, it is the ultimate stress reliever because sometimes you're, running around all day and you're thinking, oh, I have so many things to do and I can't get everything done. And how am I going to do it at the end of the day? And then when you just sit down and you take even 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and you just get it all out of your head, put it down on paper, it's it's interesting that what you find, it's like, oh, maybe I don't have that much that I have to actually do, or maybe I don't have to do that today, or, you know, to be able to work it out. And then from there, jump into, you know, what intentions do you have for yourself? So what do you have the time and the resources to do? And that's where I think a lot of people sort of go wrong with their list making and why it makes them stressed out, because they put too much on the list, right? They put write book. You're never going to write a book in one day. It just doesn't happen, right? It doesn't. And we're all authors. A lot of us here, we've done this, you know, you cannot.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, yes. So I think what you're pointing to is so important, right? Because I know a lot of people who would say that too, like, oh, don't make me stressed out if I write things down. But what you're saying is it's not just about writing things down and making that list, but it's really being intentional. And there's another word, it's very thoughtful and considerate for yourself about how you're doing it.
Yeah, you want to be kind to yourself. So in the book, I do walk through exercises to help you find your best productivity style, you know, your ideal productivity style, because not everyone is the same. And, you know, I'm not going to tell you to be a morning person if you're not a morning person. I've tried it. It made me cranky. It's just not good. So, you know, what do you do when you're not a morning person? You're an afternoon person. You get more stuff done then. So do that. That's okay. It's totally fine. But take that list and then really stack it in a way that works best for you, that you'll actually get to do things and not feel stressed out and really be able to, you know, get stuff accomplished and feel good about it. And the book also walks through, where are you right now with your stress levels? Where are you right now with your productivity? Then the second part is, well, where would you like to be, right? Like blue sky, if, you know, sky's the limit. And then I'm very practical. So how are we going to get there? The last part is all about, how do we put this into motion? How do you create your day differently? How do you, you know, determine what you say yes to and what you say no to in a different way?
Yeah. And I'm just curious, Paula, how did this get to be your thing? Like, were you always a list maker?
Yeah, I guess my dad is a big list maker, so I sort of learned from him. But my background is as a TV producer. And in TV, you have to be like really on your game, you know, deadlines, rundowns. You have to know what's coming next. If you miss something, you know, you could lose your job. So you have to be very, very, you know, on top of your game. And I was great at list making and keeping on top of things. And then at home, I wasn't so much, because I thought, oh, that's the thing I do at work, right? And then I was forgetting things. I wasn't showing up to appointments. I was just not my style. So I said, you know what? I need to be able to put this all together. And I started a blog, listproducer.com, 9 years ago. And I actually met Brenda Knight, who is not here today, but who is usually here. I met her at a conference, and she followed my blog for years. And, you know, we published my first book together, Listful Thinking, and now my second one, Listful Living. And it's been a wonderful list making journey through the years.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. So, G. Brian.
Yes.
What would you like to share from your book that you feel would help people right now?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, there's 48 chapters, so I think, you know, I think they're all helpful. However, I was thinking about that earlier, and I know how sometimes right now, and I've felt it myself a lot, that I haven't felt very expansive, because I've been, you know, I also, just to let everybody know, I mean, I know Sherry knows, but I was diagnosed with prostate cancer in late December and had surgery about 3 months ago. So while all this isolating has been going on, I was dealing with that too. So I was just kind of really locked down. And I'm always one that's very positive and optimistic about the future. And for a little while there, I kind of, since I wasn't able to get out and about and everything was shut down, I started kind of not feeling very expansive. And so I really started to think about that, and you know, how I could like change my mindset a bit. And so I have one chapter in there called Happily Expect the Unexpected, and it's kind of been my mantra through the years.
Wow.
I know where everything's headed, but yet I'm not necessarily a goal-oriented person. I kind of hold more of an intention, because I've done so many things to get to this place after I left my family business about 12 years ago that I had no idea was inside of me. With the acting and all the other stuff too. And so I just need to remind myself just to kind of this is just short term. You know what I mean? It sucks, but it's short term, and just try to just, you know, I think Paula mentioned visualizing a little bit and stuff, and just hold on to those things that that make you happy and give you hope and that you want to do in the future.
So when you, was it happily expect the unexpected? Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so tell us more about that. Tell us about expecting the unexpected. Hey, Rachel.
Oh.
Good to see you, honey.
Oh.
Nice seeing you.
Was that a question for me or for somebody else?
That was for you.
Oh, okay, well,
yeah.
Just to touch on a little bit more. I mean, like I said, I left my family business into the unknown about 12 years ago because I was just kind of burnt out, and I felt like I was supposed to do something else with my life, although I didn't know what it was. And as I was working on myself, I was out of balance at the time. So I sat down and wrote 5 things down on a piece of paper that I knew that would help me stay in balance. And I stuck it in my wallet, and thereafter I would, you know, look at it from time to time, and it helped. Then my intuition screamed, expand the list and write a book. And so I did. And I didn't sell very many copies initially, but won a couple of awards. And I was terrified to speak in front of people. And I knew that if I wanted to share its message, I needed to, you know, step out of my comfort zone there. So I did a bunch of stuff. I took Toastmasters for a little bit. I did a couple community college speech classes. I hired someone to co-host an internet radio show with me. I created an interactive workshop based, not that I was being clever, so I didn't want to have to talk the whole time, but I found out it worked out better that way. And I also just took an acting class with no plans on acting. So I just kind of followed the intuitive breadcrumbs the whole way. And as I did that, I kept being introduced and shown all these different things that made me feel alive and empowered. And I just kind of kept stepping into them. And I'm in LA now. So I guess that's what I mean by happily expecting the unexpected. Just trust your gut, trust your intuition, and step into it. And it's scary at first, but it gets easier the more you do it. And yeah.
Hey, do you remember the 5 things you wrote on that piece of paper on that list?
I do.
Can you share them?
Yeah, some of them are really simple, but just make sure I was drinking enough water, because people, that really messes with you if you don't. Make sure that I was getting enough sleep. Make sure that I was allowing myself to be creative. And at that time, being creative was playing my guitar. Another one was to make sure that I was allowing myself to have some alone time, because I'm an outgoing introvert, but I need a lot of quiet time to refill my cup. Yeah. And then about 4 or 5.
That's water, sleep, creativity, alone time.
Oh my God, what's the last one? Oh.
This list changed your life.
I know.
I know. And I have a workshop
tomorrow.
I'm doing a Zoom workshop tomorrow night on a balance. Oh my God. Hold on a sec. I got it right here.
Nothing like putting you on the spot, is there?
Daily exercise.
Oh, there you go.
Movement.
You did it.
I know.
Movement. Back to movement. You did it.
Yay.
Okay, you guys, I just want to say, here's already, we're only 15 minutes into our time together. Here's all the things I have on my list, how to take care of ourselves. We have make lists, meditate, movement, cats, drink lots of water, get lots of sleep, follow your creativity, get alone time. That's pretty good.
I think so.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So I'm curious if anybody who's joined us wants to jump in, and if you have any questions or you just want to jump in the conversation. Debbie.
Hi.
And then Marlena. Yeah.
So I just thank you both, Paula and Brian. I've written down a lot of great tips on my list as well. And Paula, you said something interesting in the beginning about sometimes there's people who let their lists lead them. And I intuitively felt like I'm that person. And I was wondering if you could expand upon that.
It's also in the same way that people let their email lead them, right? The emails come in and you're instantly like, oh, I should go do that thing that person told me to go do right now, as opposed to what you intended to do. So I make my lists every night before I leave my desk. I did that when I worked in corporate America as a TV producer. Now that I work for myself as a media trainer and strategist and author and all the things that I do. And I make that list for the next day, going through everything that I really want to accomplish. So that takes some practice because you have to have your priorities in check. There's a lot of things that you could put on that list that you could do, right? And there are things that you should do, right? There are things you have to do, right? So what are the things that, your clients will be happy with you, and but thinking through what are the things that I actually really want to do tomorrow that really align with what I'm doing, and not just busy work. Because that's the problem. A lot of times we just put a lot of busy work down. I'm a big fan of outsourcing. There's a lot that you don't have to actually do yourself because it's not the best use of your time. And, in the book, I do walk through coming up with what is your priority right now. What are the things that are you most aligned with? And, Brian was talking about his list of these priorities, so if sleep is your priority right now, then that you have to go to bed at a certain time. So you're not going to sign up for the Zoom cocktails at 8:00, with the networking group, because it's going to get you all amped up and excited, and you're not going to be able to fall asleep, right, in the time. So being able to make decisions, put things on your list that align with your priorities, that's the difference versus just jumping in and doing things that you think you should be doing or that people are asking of you, right? I mean, it's difficult to say no, but if you look through it of the lens of wellness in a way, I was a health and wellness journalist for a long time. And so I worked with a lot of experts who, were really keen on checking in with your body. How do you feel when you do the things on your list? So that's something that I've also started to do when I work with certain people, or when I do certain speaking engagements, or when I do whatever. I think, okay, how did that feel after it was over? Did I get jazzed up? Was I excited? Do I want to do it more? Or am I like so happy it's over? I need to remind myself not to say yes to that again, right? And that happens. It happens. So to do that, that's a lot to say of how to make your list, but you should take all those things into account. It's you, what will make you feel best, not what will get things done for other people.
Wow. Great. Debbie, I'd love to hear from you. Did that speak to your situation?
It did, definitely. Yes, thank you. That really brought certain things to light. So thanks. And there's lots of tips in there.
Marlena, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, Paula, you talked about meditation, and Brian, you spoke about movement. And I wanted to just do a little quick plug for moving meditation.
Oh.
My husband and I practice Tai Chi every day. And we used to sit on a cushion for decades. For 3 decades, we sat on a cushion and meditated. And now the moving meditation, I find, stills my mind and creates a sense of peace more even for me. And so I think it depends on the person, but moving meditation can be also very powerful.
Yeah.
I love that, Marlena. I do 5 rhythms dance, which is a form of moving meditation. Yeah. And I feel the same way. I also sit on a cushion, but I feel like the movement is so essential. Yeah. Love that. Yeah. Anybody else have anything you wanted to just introduce into our conversation? Well, oh, go ahead. Go.
Well, no, I was just saying, I think ultimately it all revolves around just trying to incorporate stuff that raises our vibration.
Yeah.
And helps us ground ourselves.
Say some more about that.
Oh gosh. Well, the other day I just did a little tiny 2-minute Facebook Live, and I just talked about, how important it is to ground ourselves before we have something important for, whether it's an important talk or a discussion with somebody, or a presentation or an important decision. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times we don't really think about that, and then we go into it kind of a little wobbly, and maybe we're not standing in our power, or we're not able to channel what we want to really say. And so I think, along the same lines, it's important for us, especially right now, when things are kind of up in the air and things are a little, difficult in a lot of different ways. It's really important to stay grounded so we don't get up into our head and start letting the negativity take over.
I love that. I love that. My one of my mentors, Brendan Burchard, has he does a lot of triggers, and one of them is a doorway trigger. So whenever you walk through a doorway, to pause and to, just like you're saying, to really get grounded. Like, who do I want to be? How do I want to be? And and if it's a meeting or something like that, kind of knowing, what's your why for being there. And I love that, because it's, when it's connected to something physical like that, it really reminds us to ground. I love that.
Yeah. And there's a lot of ways we can do it. I mean, we already talked about some, but something else, playing an instrument is very grounding. A lot of times before an interview, I'll just grab my guitar for 3 minutes.
So
You know,
great.
for some people, it might be dancing to their favorite song in their room before they do something. Taking a shower, hot shower.
Marlena.
I just wanted to add to that threshold question. I recently interviewed a Mango author, Donna Markova, and she says every morning she asks the question, how am I going to love the world today? And so I thought I would inject a little Donna Markova into the conversation. She's all one of us anyway.
I love Donna. And that is a beautiful, thank you for bringing that in, right? Yeah, and that speaks to, right, really speaks to that sense of intention, deep intention. Yeah, Linda.
Well, and Marlena, it's so interesting that you brought up the word threshold, because that's what I was thinking when Sherry was talking about doorways as those moments to pause. Threshold is there's so much spiritual, what is the right word? Energy to thresholds. There's so much to the idea of a threshold, and to take that moment to pause, to sort of use a threshold as your bell of mindfulness, to give you that moment to pause as you're moving through your day or into a meeting or whatever it is. I think that's such a wonderful idea. Thank you for sharing that, because I'd never heard of that before. And John O'Donohue writes so beautifully about thresholds, that it's just such a beautiful subject. I love that idea of putting those two things together. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I wanted to mention that for grounding, I always have a rock in my pocket. That's always, I always have some sort of rock in my pocket just for grounding whenever I might need it. So
show us what have you got today in your pocket? You held it up, but it was a little
just a piece of white quartz, just a little tiny piece.
Do you have a different rock on different days, or is it the same, that piece of quartz?
Honestly, in the morning, I have a little pile of rocks, and I pick which one feels right to me for that day, and that's the one that comes with me.
I love that. Which is another, like a talisman, or I don't know if that's the right word, but that is another way to relieve stress, right? To have something that that we carry. I wanted to thank you too, because I always use doorway triggers, because that's what Brendan uses. But I love threshold, and I'm going to carry that piece forward, because you're right. I think it has a little bit more poetic and spiritual bent to it. So thank you for that. Yeah. Nita.
Hi, I wanted to add to this threshold doorway conversation. I'm really, really enjoying it. I sit a lot of silent retreats, and more than one teacher in different ways talks about the awareness of which foot goes forward. So that it's not necessarily that you force a foot to go forward, but it's just being aware of which foot goes forward, because then you're in your body, you're aware of that moment. And for me, I apparently am left-footed, because almost always, I don't know that it means anything, I don't even care, but I almost always, when I'm awake, it's always my left foot. But I too love that idea of thresholds and doorways. I can't access it right now, but there's some great poems about choosing whether to go. I can't remember, I'm sorry. And I'm in a room in the house where I can't get it easily. But there's a poem, if you just look up doorway, about choosing. You will either go through the doorway or you will not. In the end, it is only a door. And that always just stays with me, that I'm here choosing this door or not, that door or not. So.
Yeah. Oh, Nita, I love that. Thank you. Rachel? I see
What-
you.
You know.
I know we're connected now.
Yes. What it's funny, Nita, you were saying about the the being conscious of your foot in your footing and putting the foot forward. One of the exercises I used to do was anytime I needed to be very aware of my perspective, I would stand on a chair at a different part of the room to look at things from a different angle than I would ever look at them, so that I could really evaluate each thing and see it differently. Because that was one of the things that that autopilot, getting stuck in autopilot in the doing, and that was the foot thing too. And another one, an exercise that I was given by a friend like forever ago, was whatever way you normally put on your undergarments, change it. Do it the opposite. So it makes you fully aware of getting out of autopilot from the very first thing like you really do to get ready. So I thought that was great. And that really helped too. So, I mean, even socks, everything, but just doing everything stepped backwards just so you wouldn't go into autopilot.
Love that, Rachel. I just wrote down, put on your underwear backwards, which I don't think you meant.
I was trying to like not say it, but you know.
I just think it's funny because it was my own little stress reliever, right? By like just writing down something so silly like that.
I know. Well, and it's because it's so silly. And even with the standing in the corner of the room, because I used to do it in one of my workshops and have people stand in different corners. Because it's like that exercise with the elephant where all these people are blindfolded and they put their hands on the different part of the elephant. It's the same thing, just to show that there's different perspectives from every angle. So it just makes you more aware of your being and your choices.
Well, right. And where I went with that too is that by changing our perspective, we might see something, obviously, right, that we hadn't seen before. Even if it's changing our perspective about where you are in the room, could change how we see something.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep. Absolutely. And that's what reminds me that it's all choices. You know, we choose our perspective. So we choose to look at things from a specific angle. We choose to do, it really, for me, that helps ground and center me in not getting emotionally attached to what other people are doing and how other people are viewing things, because I can get really ungrounded if I focus too much on what other people are doing and not see it as it's their perspective of truth, instead of them being right, I'm being, right versus wrong and all of that, and getting so emotionally enmeshed with it. So it helps me be grounded there.
That makes me think back to some of your teachings, and I wanted to bring it back to this because I think it's so important, is that idea of other people have certain ideas, right? And you talked a little bit about this, but I think it'd be helpful to hear more about other people have certain ideas about what we should be doing, whether it's to help them or if it's maybe family to support them. How do you speak about that?
It is so difficult when someone asks you to do something because you want to be helpful and you want to jump in and you think, oh, it'll just take a minute. I'll just do it real quick. And then, you go down the rabbit hole and you're doing something totally different and you forget what you were in the middle of doing. And right. And we've all been there. It happens. But I ask you to not do that, to stop yourself from doing it and just pause. So in the same way we're talking about meditation, it's sort of that like mindfulness moment where when the email pops up, you don't have to write back right now. Yeah. You can just put it on your list and say, oh, I need to write back to Sherry. Not that I need to do it right this second, because we get so pulled in and you want to do it, but then it just totally derails you. And part of this too is knowing how long do things actually take you to do. So, my background as a TV producer, I know exactly how long 30 seconds is. I know how long a minute is. Most people do not think in seconds. But I try to get people to think in seconds and in minutes, to say, okay, will it truly take me 5 minutes? Or does the 5 minutes really mean 25 minutes? So that you know yourself and okay, could I fit this in, this one thing? Or can I not? because a lot of times you can't, right? You're working on something else. And I think it takes, I forget what the number is. It's either 21 or 26 minutes. I have to remember. When you get distracted, it takes you 21 minutes to get back on track.
Wow. I love that. I just wrote on my stress relieving list, you know, don't go into rabbit holes that other people invite you into.
Yes, that's good.
I think that's a really great. Oh, Rachel says, thanks so much. It's exactly what I needed to hear. I love that.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is something also, though, as much as I love lists, of course, but something to be said for going with the flow. I just wrote an article on LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn newsletter, and a friend of mine recently did a podcast, and, you know, she talked about, she loves lists like I do. And she talked about how she like threw the list away and she decided, you know what, I'm going to do something totally different. Not that's on the list. I'm going to just like go with the flow. And she had the best time. And you know, she found things she wouldn't have found, or she did things she wouldn't have done, or things that she, you know, and so we have to remind ourselves, you know, as much as I love rules and being rigid with my list making, you also have to kind of, you know, open yourself up for possibility and allow things to flow in and flow out, and maybe to distract you. But it's, you know, being able to tell, is this like a worthy distraction, or is this just busy work?
I love that. Sometimes, because I'm a big list maker myself, you know, so on my list of things to do, I'll put, you know, just playtime or free time or unstructured time, but I have to put it on the list because then I feel free in it.
Yes.
You know, because it's, I'm not procrastinating. It's there for me to do, right? Where I get to just do whatever I want.
You give yourself permission.
What'd you say?
You gave yourself permission.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
I love that. Especially, I mean, I think there's a lot of creatives in the room, and, you know, a lot of times with creative people, you feel like, oh, if I write things down, or if I put it on a list, or I make myself a schedule, then I won't be creative. But the truth is that if you give yourself those, you know, sort of boundaries, you're able to be even more creative in that time. I found that, you know, with my own writing, you know, with creative projects and things that I really enjoy, that you can, you know, you can actually, you get it done. It's a better way to sort of focus your time.
And I found that I'm a lot more accountable to something that I've written on a list than I am to something that's floating around in my head. Years ago, I got a job that way. I wanted to contact this photography studio. And so on Friday, when I was in a good mood, I put that on the list for Tuesday. And Tuesday, when I got up, it was like, I don't want to do that. But I was like, it's on the list. So sure enough, I showed up cold call at the studio, and the woman said, oh my God, I've been looking for someone. So
amazing. See,
yeah.
Lists change lives. I love it.
That's such a great story. And you know what? The piece I love about it too is that you showed up even though you weren't quite in that same place.
Right.
I agree with you. I think sometimes lists do that for us, right? They call us into something that maybe we would have had the energy for, but they sort of, for me, they call me back into that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, if I write it down, I'm much more accountable to it.
Yeah, you're actually 33% more likely to do something that you write down. There's science behind it.
Okay.
So setting that intention, you know, it could be anything. It could be calling for a job. It could be picking up milk, whatever it is. So there is real, you know, there's a science behind getting you to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Go, Nita.
Yeah, I may have missed this. I'm sorry, I had to hop in late, but so how do people feel about making lists by hand versus using, you know, Excel spreadsheets or, you know, those, like I have a pretty major online system because I have 13 projects with various parts. So I'm just curious if there's a hybrid version or just how you do it, what the mechanics are.
Paula, you want to start us off, and then maybe Brian can add.
Okay, so I do both. I really love to make my daily to-do list at the end of the day, as I mentioned before, but I do it by hand. Every night I have a notebook, different notebook, depending on what, you know, now this one has some weird little, I don't even know what they are, flamingos or something on them. So it's just sort of like, people always ask, what pens do you use? And what, what notebooks, where do you write? And I'm always like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. As long as you like to write in it, that is what you should use. So this is what I'm using at the moment, the Flamingo notepad. And, I like to do it by hand and use just this one notebook. But then I also use lots of apps. And I use apps for specific things. I use Evernote, which I really like. And the problem for me, though, with Evernote is it does too much. You can put too many things in there and then lose them, which is what I did. So now I have to be very specific about what kind of apps I use for what sort of thing. So there's an app called Clear that I really love. It's a to-do list app, and it's beautifully designed. It's very simple. And I only put things that I need at the grocery store or, the pharmacy or whatever. Those are the only lists that I put in that app, because then I know exactly what to find there. It's almost like, if you leave your keys in the same place every day, you know where you're going to find it. So I know where to go, because otherwise I just put too many, there's so many lists I could make. There's too much then in one app. So for me, that's how I have to kind of compartmentalize where am I putting the different things. But there's a place for both. You just have to remember to use them, see if it's useful for you.
How about you, Brian? Where do you put your lists?
Gosh, I do to-do lists on little scraps of paper, and keep them handy. Sometimes, depending on a project, I'll have a notebook like Paula does. Specific notebooks that I'll put stuff in there to kind of keep them separate and not getting mixed up. But for the most part, I just have little to-do lists, and just. Yeah, just depending on the project, I also have some files on my desktop, that I keep everything together and just know where it is exactly and pop right in there. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of a rhyme or reason. I need to be careful too, though, kind of, because I'm a bit of a Boy Scout and a people pleaser. And if I get too much stuff going, then it weighs me down and it's counterproductive and it puts too much pressure on myself. And so I'm always trying to be aware of that.
I love that. Nita, do you ever have that issue with too many things on too many lists?
Yes. I actually, periodically, I go through and nuke the entire list and start from scratch.
You do?
Yeah. I have ones, I always have ones that are hot, that are commitments to other people. And those are a different color. And so I won't nuke those. But every once in a while, I just go through and I just blow it up. Yeah.
Oh, you are my hero.
It doesn't matter. I mean, it's not that the things that are on there are not important enough. They're not commitments to other people. They're not commitments to myself that are, I don't know. It's not important as like heart things. And, but yeah, every once in a while I just go in and just drag the whole thing into the trash.
I love it. That's so brave. I've done that with email before and people always gasp, but I did it with email because the email was out of control and I couldn't deal with it. And so I did that exact same thing. I put a timer for 20 minutes and I said, you can go fishing to find the emails that you want to reply to or that you need, and then you're deleting everything. And I deleted everything because it was very woo-woo of me. I was like, what needs to come back to me will come back to me. The people who need to be in my life will be in my life. And it was fine. And the world didn't end and I didn't miss anything important. People followed up that needed to, but it was very freeing. So I love that you do that with your list as well.
Well, I don't know if it's like a spiritual axiom that what I need will come to me without any action on my part, which I don't mostly, like 99.9% of the time, I think that's hogwash, and yet it's almost always been true. Okay,
Agreed.
So there's like my logical part of my brain that says that's baloney, and then there's reality, which is that's mostly true. So,
totally.
So I always think, the list, I like what you talked about with the intention of, and I like what Brian says about the, it's like sometimes you just have to give yourself a break. You have to say, this is my rest time. I've got this thing going on, But I like to operate under the illusion that I am in charge of my life. And there are places where I am, but there's a lot of places where I'm not. And so I have to watch to not think I have a lot more control than I do. So.
Wow.
Human nature to try to control stuff too much, and it's caused me problems, that's for sure.
Well, and I think that's why I'm in such admiration, both Paula and Nita, that ability to just like, because I have a stack behind me, old to-do lists, right, that I think I'm going to go through and put, I don't, and the same with email. So every once in a while, I'll move all the email into another folder where I won't see it, but I can't quite throw it away. Mm-hmm. So you guys are my new heroes at that idea of, you know, it's just not alive. I mean, I'll tell myself this, it's not alive for me, you know, it's not alive. Why am I carrying this dead weight around?
People feel that way about apps too, I think, sometimes. You know, they download the apps, and I always say, well, apps don't have feelings, so it's okay if you delete it. It's fine. It's fine. Like, use the app for 2 weeks. If it works for you, it's your app, and if it doesn't, get rid of it, and that's it. It's okay. We don't need to hoard apps now. Digital hoarding is a whole other thing.
Yeah, Rachel.
So I love like ficus trees and banyan trees because they do that crawling. And when I had bought one like as a baby, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't crawling as it grew, and the guy told me, you have to get rid of some of the weight on the top of the tree. And it's like, you have to allow the energy to go where you want it to go. And I was just like, and that became, yeah, it was like, I was mind blown. And one day I was climbing the tree, and I was up there, and I was taking off the weight. And then I'm like, and it actually made me start taking the dead weight out of my life. It was like the most amazing transformation I had, was being in that tree and physically doing it. And I know that they say that about clutter too. It's like, if you remove the physical clutter from your life, you'll actually start really removing the emotional clutter more naturally. And so I just always got a kick out of that. And so it's so funny that you brought that up, because I was just like, oh my gosh, the tree.
I'm laughing to myself too, because I've said this now several times, but I was supposed to have a haircut today, and they closed everything again. But I feel like it's the same way with a haircut. Like what you're saying about the tree, I feel like when I get my haircut, it like somehow lightens everything. I feel so dragged down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess it's just like having a clean kitchen. It's just kind of like having to clean you, right? You know, I mean, just less energy, negative energy, not negative, but just heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of stress associated with clutter, you know, especially there was a study done specifically for women, and found that, you know, cortisol levels were just off the charts when you're around clutter, you know, when you're just when it's on your desk, when it's, you know, so it's not good to have that, you know, whether it be digital clutter or, you know, physical clutter, whatever it is, it really makes an impact. So, and a lot of times you find you don't even need any of this stuff anyway, right? You know, I don't know if anybody's a Marie Kondo fan, but the idea of, you know, does it spark joy? That could be used not only for clutter, but I use it for, you know, speaking engagements. I use it for, you know, when people ask me to do things, you know, if it doesn't spark up something exciting, I say no, you know, and it's hard to get in that place to be able to, like, in a split second, think of that and be able to do it, because you know, we're people pleasers. We want to help people. We want to do things. It can be difficult.
Hey, Paula.
Don't come for my books.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who was saying something?
Oh, it's just me. I just said, just stay away from my books.
Oh, I know. Everyone's mad at Marie Kondo because she wants everyone to get rid of their books. I know.
Paula, what I was going to say is, we had talked before everyone came on that you would lead us in a short list making something. And it occurred to me, maybe you have an idea for us around, does this spark joy? And I don't know exactly what it would be, but do you?
Yeah, I do. So the idea so since we're talking about stress, right? And thinking of, you know, is there a list of things that you've done that have, you know, sparked joy? Like, are there things that you want to put on your list that more you know, during the pandemic, during whatever, you know, some people get stressed out from doing, you know, too many Zoom happy hours or too many, you know, maybe that didn't spark joy for you. But if you make a list of the things that really did spark joy for you that you want to continue to implement when we're all able to go back out into the world in our normal way, that could be a really great activity to be able to say, you know, was it the movement? You know, you're taking your walk with your friend, you know, every day. Do you want to have that still when the world goes back? You know, what are the things that, you know, like for me, I've been doing yoga also was another thing, you know, so meditation was something, but yoga, I had stopped doing it for a long time. So yoga's on my list of like, I definitely want to do this again. And there's actually an exercise in the book that I walk people through about writing a letter to yourself, to your future self. And it's something that I've done a couple of times in my life, but most recently when I left my full-time corporate job, you know, I sat at a lunch break and I was like, if I'm sitting here in a year, I'm going to be so mad at myself because this doesn't spark joy anymore. You know, I loved this career. It was great, but I'm ready to move on. So I went back to my desk and I wrote myself a letter of how I was feeling in that moment. So I would remember, and I sent it, I forgot that I sent it, but I sent it a year later. And when I got it a year later, I had put my notice in, I was like ready to go. I was all excited to, you know, start my new career. And it was such a nice remembrance for myself to say, hey, you really wanted this. Don't be afraid. You should be doing this, you know, this letter from myself. So if we make a list of the things that we want to continue to bring with us that have sparked joy for us during this pandemic time, I think that'd be helpful to remind yourself. You can email it to yourself in the future, whatever it is, but I think that'd be good.
I love that. Maybe let's just take 1 minute and everybody can just kind of go inward and just consider what Paula just suggested. Like, what is it that has really sparked joy that you want to bring with you into the future, no matter what happens? Does anybody want to share anything they put on their list?
Sure.
Okay. Brian and then Rachel.
Well, in some ways, I think part of it has to do with the diagnosis and the situation I went through, but just the surrendering to everything. You know, I'm pretty even keel, and I was able to kind of, you know, it was tough, just deal with everything and the isolating, and I just, you know, was able to kind of go with the flow and not get too worked up.
Ah, oh, that's a great one. Love it. Rachel.
Mine is to stay centered in my daily activities because that's how I've kind of kept myself sane with, like, when, you know, being so isolated, it's like finding joy in the littlest things, like hand washing, which I've talked about many times, and but just being present with my actions and what I'm doing, and in nature too, because I noticed that I every time I go out and take my dog out, I'm paying attention to the birds more. I'm paying attention to the new life with the spring. I've paid so much more attention now. I definitely want to take that with me because I don't think I've ever been so aware of where I live and what gifts and joys are in the nature around me and everything. And that's because I keep doing these things to center myself in everything I'm doing. And it's been amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So I definitely want to take that with me.
Linda.
Well, yeah, I can tag on to Rachel because one of the things that I decided to do during the pandemic, because it's still easy for me where I live to get outside, and some of my friends lived in places at the beginning where it was definitely still winter, was I shared almost every day just a short, like minute and a half video of something that I observed outside. And just a minute of being completely present with whatever I was looking at was so much fun. And sharing them and seeing the reactions of people was just very, very joyful. So that's definitely something that I will continue to do. Who knows how long into the future. But one of the other things too for me is sometimes I decide things by knowing what I don't want to create instead of what I do want to create when I don't know what it is. And that's been interesting during the pandemic, of just noticing the things that I don't miss during the pandemic, you know, that I used to do, rather than the things that I want to take forward, the things I don't want to take forward. So that was interesting too.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Lois.
I put Pilates on my list. I had actually started right after Christmas with a routine, going for classes 3 times a week, and was really getting settled into that. And then mid-March, we got completely shut down. So the studio has been open again for about 5 weeks now. And, you know, sparks joy might be pushing it a little, but it serves as a really good anchor in my day.
I love that.
And it does make me joyful in the sense that I'm taking care of myself. I'm making sure that I age better than I would if I just sat around all day. It's a form of exercise that I really like. There's just enough routine and just enough unpredictability. And so I'm really glad that the studio's back open and we've settled back into that.
Ooh, that's awesome. Yeah, Nita.
Yeah, this is a little different. I really enjoyed what other people have shared. One of the things that I have learned, I used to think that I needed to go to leave my house to work, which I think was helpful to me. Bye, Marlena. But the space that I actually needed to create was inside me. And that's what I figured out. I would leave the house thinking I needed space, but because I can't leave the house, I found that I had to create the space, and it's actually mental space that I needed as opposed to physical space. So that's something I just want to remember. Now, the thing I miss, which I sort of heard the question 2 ways, and the first thing I thought of is that I miss running with my friends. I mean, we have a pace group. Our running group is 1,000 people, and our pace groups, there's usually 70 to 80 people in our pace group. And man, we're like family. And some people are doing like little tiny clusters, but I'm not comfortable doing that, mostly because of my husband's health issues. But I miss that probably more than anything. And so a day will come when I'll be able to train with the group again, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Thanks, Nita. Brian, did you have something?
Oh, I mean, I don't know if it's completely new, but I think just along the lines of just, really, I mean, I knew it, but I just having going through all that we went through and just realizing how really little we need to be happy.
That's a great one.
Wow. Yeah. Such good ones. So great. One of the other things that I started doing, because I had trouble sleeping a bit in the beginning of all of this, and I think a lot of people had that issue, but changing my sleep routine. I've always had a rule, of course, I have rules, where I don't take the phone into the bedroom with me. I leave it out. But now I've started to read right before I go to sleep, and always read fiction, because I used to read nonfiction, and then I would get all excited and have ideas and have to take notes. And, then I'm up half the night, like getting on, let me just Google this thing real quick. So I don't do that anymore. It just has to be fiction. I read a chapter before I go to sleep every single night. And I have been doing it since March. And I've finished so many books. I feel so good about myself that way.
Love that. That's a great one. You guys are not going to believe this list that I have.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell it to you in a second, but I just wanted to share something that, Paula, thank you, because when you asked that question, I hadn't really thought of this before, but for me, I started doing these author panels and interviewing authors on Facebook Live, and also interviewing coaches on my personal Facebook page, all of them to support people during the pandemic. But really, of course, what I saw when you asked that question was that this has been like one of the things that has really kept me joyful. Because I mean, look at I'm so happy right now. Like all these interesting people, every one of you has something so interesting to offer and thought-provoking. And it's really what has kept me feeling alive and growing. And so I'm so grateful. I just, it was so nice to look at all of you and think, oh, I want to keep this going no matter what, so.
I love that. That's great. See, it comes out of some creativity came out of all of this.
Right? You guys want to hear our list?
Yes.
And you tell me if I forgot anything, because I've been chicken scratching the whole time. So this is in no particular order because they're all like on top of each other. Stand on a chair and get perspective, drink water, get enough sleep, follow your creativity, get alone time, exercise, make lists, meditate, movement, cats, Tai Chi, moving meditation, showers, baths, rocks, carrying rocks, that's right. Doorway and threshold triggers, playing instruments, putting on your undergarments backwards, paying attention, don't go into rabbit holes other people invite you into, being out in nature, make adequate estimates of time it takes to do things on your list, find space within yourself, get help with things, delegate, clear clutter, digital and physical, yoga, Pilates, reading, writing yourself a letter. That's pretty good for us, huh?
I got another couple.
Oh yeah, what?
Well, it's kind of an extension of what Marlena said, but gratitude. I think, I think that's really important to help raise our vibration too, and service, and as well as play.
Play. I love those. And the other thing that I would add for myself, like I've always been a big letter writer. I love snail mail. But during the pandemic, that has been even more, prominent in my life. And that's such a great pick-me-up and stress reliever to connect with other people we love. So. Anything else that we forgot? I mean, I'm sure there's hundreds more, but.
I just have a warning.
You have a warning?
I do.
Lois, bring it on. All right.
When I worked at an elementary school, if we wanted a snow day, we always told kids to put their clothes on backwards. So be careful about that underwear thing and monitor the weather when you do it.
You had me scared there for a minute.
I know.
Oh, it's 2020. It could happen,
True, you're right.
All bets are off.
Anything can happen. We know that to be true now. We just lived through a sci-fi movie, so yeah.
Brian, bring us back, bring us home. What did you say? Happily expect the unexpected. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Just it's gonna get better. Just hold, try to think of those things, those times that were fun, that were positive and optimistic, and just hang on to them a little bit, and just visualize how you want things to be when things get cleaned up a little.
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
It's easy, but it's, yeah.
Yeah, intention is so important. So if we're thinking of all the things that could happen, a lot of them could be really good things that could happen, that could come from this, right? And it's so easy to get caught in that, oh my God, this is so terrible and everything bad is happening. But, a lot of really nice things have come out of it. I hate to say that when so many people have been hurt by it, but there are, we just need to be careful about what we're intending. It's like people used to tell me when my kids were young, oh, just you wait until they're teenagers. And that used to make me crazy, because just because you had a bad experience with your kids as a teenager doesn't mean I will. And so I held a different intention for myself with my kids. So intention's really important.
I love that, Linda. It was so beautiful. Wow. Our hour's up. I really want to thank all of you. Thank you to our guest authors, Paula and G. Brian. And then Nita and Rachel are also Mango authors. We're so glad you guys are here. And thank you to Debbie for helping us with all the logistics. And welcome to Linda and Lois and Jennifer. It's really been such a great hour. And I think we should all just really feel great about the creativity. And again, thanks to Brian and Paula for bringing that in. So, it's fun. It's really, I feel sparked with joy. Thanks to you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks. Yeah, this
everybody.
was fun.
Thank
Nice
you,
to
Sherry.
It was great. We're here every Wednesday. Come back again. And I will also have the replay up probably tomorrow.
Okay.
So,
Great.
yay. Thanks,
Great.
guys.
Where are the replays?
Thank you, everybody.
Going. All right.
Sherry, where do you post the replays?
Oh, they go on the Mango Facebook page. Who just asked me that? I heard it, but I
Okay,
didn't.
thank you.
Oh, was that you, Linda? Yeah, all of the replays are on the Mango Facebook page. Just go to videos and you'll see them from the very beginning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye, everybody.